All right, good morning and welcome to Daf Yevamos, Daf Chav Daled, number 24. As you know, yesterday we had a special guest on Just Daf It. Uh, Rabbi Shmuel Wittel gave us some insights into how he funds a kollel that pays 3,000 shekel per person. That's roughly 700 to $750 a month he's paying them, which is basically minimum wage in Israel, which is very good. A call paying minimum wage. We know that the Mir pays one third of that, 1,000 shekel a month. A call I was in Beitar paid around 1,500 to 1,600 shekel a month. He's paying double that. How is he doing it? That was the question. I had a 10-minute discussion with him before the shiur yesterday. He was telling me different things about ishtadlus, not ishtadlus, how he writes letters to some people, doesn't write letters to some people. But he said one of the things he said was that he doesn't take money from the money that he collects in America. He takes up for his own personal finances, for his chasanas, whatever he uses. He didn't explain where the other money comes from. He's a Rosh Kollel. He learns the whole day. We're going to have to discuss this more. Unfortunately, Rashmuel Wittow does not live here, so he will not be here for a whole month because the Kollel closes Rosh Chodesh Nisan on Shabbos. He will not be returning to Rosh Chodesh Iyar for a whole month. But when he does come back, I haven't discussed with him yet, but he does like coming on this year. So, I noticed that on YouTube, especially, it's been very trending, these discussions or podcasts or anything that has to do with financial information or financial advice. I don't know if he's going to give you financial advice, but he's going to give you, he is a very transparent person. He believes in transparency. Obviously, it's backed by his view of the Torah, how to fulfill the Torah. And I think he's a really interesting person, and he has what to say about finances. So if you're interested in figuring out the life of a Rosh Kollel, how does he pay his bills? How does he fund the kollel? Really, we didn't get into the particulars of how he funds the kollel and what his ishtadlus actually is. He says now he does ishtadlus. He deals with the stock market a little bit. He has his hand in the stock market with a little bit of knowledge. He said he reads a little bit. We have to dissect all of these areas, and I think people will love it. Um, People are listening to this podcast about people getting financial information with no personal information, financial advice with no personal information, and no personal. Everyone's, the most personal information. I heard one guy says, "How could you eat a cheese Danish? $5 a day. You're throwing away your kids, your grandkids." Tuition, your grandkids' chasanas. You know what you could do with $5 a day? Never eat a cheesecake again. You know, oh, I mean, that was a little serious, but you know, that's the financial advice these people are giving you. This is a person who earned a lot of money and advises people who earn a lot of money. As you know, I have a very different opinion of wealth. What true wealth is, it has to be lamaisa, lamaisa. This is wealth here. When you can convert something, the more you convert it into enjoyment. And when you have stocks, you have to convert the stocks into the actual bank account. Then you take the money in the bank account and buy something you enjoy. Then you have to actually enjoy it. That's the end point. The end point is to enjoy it. And that's a real usher. We're able to enjoy life. To get there is many steps away, and it involves making hard decisions and selling your stock sometimes, a lot of times, to get the money in your bank account, and to be able to spend the money and buy the things that you actually like is not so easy. And then to be able to allow yourself to enjoy them, to eat a chocolate bar, not so easy. Yetzer Hara destroys you in that sense the most out of anything else. It wants to make sure that you don't get any enjoyment in this world. It'll tell you you're an usher because you have millions of dollars, billions of dollars in your stock market, your whatever, your account. Uh, it doesn't mean anything, even if it's in your bank account, it doesn't mean anything until you spend it. I mean, most people they spend it cheaply. They don't want to spend all their money. They don't want to wait. No, you got to buy stuff. You got to enjoy. This is my philosophy, and I want to know how it contrasts with Rushmore Wittow's philosophy. It's going to be very interesting, and we're going to incorporate it into Daf Yomi shiur in about a month. So stay tuned. And you could watch for this month also. We'll still have shiurim throughout this month, but he's going to be the main feature coming up next month. So stay tuned for that. Let's get started. Chav Gilman Bays on the bottom. 4 lines from the bottom. We talked about yesterday, right? You have two people that marry two sisters, and they're not sure. They got mixed up afterward which person was married to which sister. So they each can't marry the other sister because they can't marry the woman they think is their sister because it might be they're married to the other one, and you can't marry two sisters. If you marry two sisters, it's a problem. It's an erba. What about he dies? One of these two originally two people die, and they leave over two brothers. They each leave over two brothers. So he said that out of each pair, one does chalitza, and another does yibum. So the Gemara says Hasu Lamali, the third to last line from the bottom of Kilam is Hainu Hach. It's the same thing as yesterday. Basically, we've been saying this. What first one does a chalitza, another does yibum. Gemara says Mal the links are dealing with miyavim lo chalitza. Her concern, this is tell me maybe it's xera because if you do yibum first before chalitza, any chalitza is done. So then it might be the right one. It might be the actual woman that your brother was married to, but it might be the woman that the other brother was married to. In which case, if there's no chalitza done first, you're going to be marrying a Yevamos, a shuk, or you'll be marrying achos, zikukaso. Again, these are problems, so we want to avoid them. Therefore, but we're not goes there to make sure. There's a derabanan, so therefore it's only a suffix. We're not goes there. Mishna, the Gemara says Mishna mahadis tan arba achin shnayim mehem nesu shtei achayos. The later Mishna in the Masechta, four brothers, right? Four brothers. Two of them are married to two sisters. Luckily, the two brothers, unfortunately, the two brothers who were married, the two sisters died. Now you have two women falling to Yibam, the two brothers. Both of these brothers, they can only do chalitza, not Yibam. They can't do Yibam. Here we say they could do Yibam. Why are we here? We say, right? Again, we don't know. We have two brothers over here. We don't know if it's the right wife or not. But again, there's two sisters involved, right? Two sisters. So why? But here with two sisters, we allow a yibam to be done. There we don't. We only allow chalitza. Whereas haki hashta hasam chav dalam and off the top. Zika. There it's different because it's right. If you hold of zika, there is a zika bond. There's a strong bond between the yavam and the yavama. So therefore, zika, and there's a problem of achos kukasa. Neither one can do yibam because he's probably going to do yibam on achos kukaso. The other one who holds there's no zika. The reason you can't do yibam over there is because even if one person does yibam, so then his brother might die. If his brother might die, then the other woman, the other sister, is going to be an erva, and she's going to go out below klum. She's not going to do chalitza, not yibam, and there's no mitzvah to do either chalitza or yibam. So therefore, we don't want him to either one to do yibam because it's going to prevent him. If he just does chalitza, so that doesn't, even if the other brother dies, it's not going to be a problem because then it's only achos chalitza, so it's only the rabbanon, and therefore it could do chalitza on the second lady. You're not mevatel any of the mitzvahs. But here it's different. The difference over here is a suffix. It's a suffix achos zikukoso. We don't know. It could be that it really is the two brothers. It could be that it's the right woman and her sister does not have a zika to you at all. Right? There were two men married to two sisters, but one of them was married to each. We just don't know which one. So therefore, I have a right to do yibam, to stand up and say, no, the woman that's in front of me, she is the woman that my brother married, for sure, not Besar Suffix. So therefore, for sure, says, no, even if you hold Yesh Zika, he says it's mine, it's a suffix, right? It's a big difference. It's a suffix over here. So therefore, he's allowed to do, as long as we get along the problem, first one brother does chalitza, the other brother does chalitza, another brother or the other pair does chalitza, and then they can each do yibam, and everything works out. Now, if these two brothers go ahead and marry these two ladies, two of the brothers, we don't make them get rid of their wives. Tani Shela, afilu shneim kohanim. Even if both of these are kohanim, why should be more of a problem? The suffix chalutza lagaz rabbanon. Here we're talking about a case where you have these mixed up wives, and the brothers of, let's say, Ruvain, who was married to one of the wives, he has two brothers. So if one of them does chalitza, so even if the other man was a Kohen, he was married to the sister, and now he died, so even if the first guy did chalitza, the most issues is a chalutza. So they're in the Kohanim, we don't make them get rid of them because it's only a chalutza. It's chalutza on the rabbanon. Suffix chalutza lo gazru rabbanon. It's only a suffix. So the rabbanon, you go lakula, they didn't make you get rid of your wife. The Gemara says chalutza rabbanon is chalutza only this with the rabbanon. Matanya grusha. The Bible says grusha. Kohen can't marry a divorced woman. Ainli ala grusha chalutza minayin. How do you know we can't marry a woman who had chalitza undergone to her, right? She did, the Yavam did chalitza to her. Talmud Omar Isha, Ve'isha, it says Ve'isha grusha, extra word Ve'isha. Why do you say that? So you see that it's Doraisa, Ve'isha, it's drasha. The says Midarabbanan, who across Machtamam, the Gemara suggests, no, really, maybe it's only Darabbanan, because just in support, it's not really learned out. It's not the sod of the pasuk, it's just a drasha. All right. Gemara says Mishna of Dalam and Aleph, mitzvah begadol yaber. The mitzvah is for the gadol. We're going to discuss this hopefully with Ian Ben Sion. There's a bachor and a gadol. Gadol is the oldest brother alive, right? Could be the oldest brother was married to the woman, right? Usually that happens, and he dies, and then he has brothers remaining over. The mitzvah is the gadol, the oldest remaining brother. He has the mitzvah to do yibum first, liyabim. We'll see later. If he doesn't do mitzvah, the mitzvah goes to the katan. That's Mishna. But if the katan goes ahead and precedes his brother, he just goes ahead and acts unlawfully, and he's miyabim the woman. It's good yibum. It qualifies as yibum, and we don't remove him from that marriage. Mar says, Tana Rabbanan, we're going to darshan the pasuk about yibum. V'haya bachor. Says the bachor. Mikaj mitzvah b'gadol yabim. Here it's derive. The mitzvah, the first option in doing yibum, is placed on the gadol, the oldest remaining brother, Asher Teilei. Plus, it continues Asher Teilei. Proud islandess, it has to be that the woman, the Yevama, has to be able to have children. An islandess, we said, like we already learned on Daf It, she's positive in a yibum shein yoleda. She doesn't give birth. Yakum al shem achil lenachala. What does that mean? Ata omer lenachala means that the person, the brother who does yibum, he inherits his brother's inheritance, his whole estate. Maybe it just means Yakmal Shem Achiv. Meaning what? That he has to give the name to the child that he has the same name as his deceased brother. Yosef, Korin, also Yosef. Yochanan, Korin, also Yochanan. If the father, the deceased father, was called Yosef, you call the child that you have with his Yevama Yosef or Yochanan. Whereas the Nemer Kan Yakum Al Shem Achiv, Nemer Al Al Shem Achayim, Mikro Menach Lasam. It says Al Shem. It's Al Shem. Ma Sham Amr Lahala Nachla. Let's go over there. We're talking about inheritance. Av Sham Shem Amr Kala Nachla. It just means he'll have the name of his brother in terms of the inheritance, meaning on the deed of the house, it'll say his name. Not that he has to name after his brother. V'lo Yimachish Shmo. Pause continue. Lo Yimachish Shmo. If you do Yibam, his name won't be erased. Probably Sris. This comes to exclude a Sris, meaning a naturally born man. Your brother was naturally born sterile. He couldn't have children. He was unable to father children. There's no mitzvah of yibum over him, but for him, why? Probably his name was already dissolved by the time he was born. His name was already erased. He's never going to have children. Even though normally in the whole Torah we take into account the simple explanation of the pasuk. Here the Gzera Shava comes and tells you don't learn at all like the pasuk in the pasuk. Whereas meaning basically the pasuk in the pasuk is that you call the child that you have with the Yevama the same name as the deceased father. Gzera Shava tells us not to do this. The Gemara says, Gzera Shava hava amina shem mamish. If it wasn't the Gzera Shava, I would have said the pshat of the pasuk is to call him the same name. Laman kamazar, it can't be that. Laman kamazar rachmana. Who is the Torah talking to? Yakum al shem achi. Verse the pasuk says, who is the Torah talking to? The Yavam. If you say it's talking to the Yavam and telling the Yavam you have to call him the name of his brother, Yakum Hashem Achicha. The Torah should have said it's talking to the Yavam Achicha, your brother, not Hashem Achav. If it's talking about to the Beis Din, they should ensure that the name of the child from the Yibum is the same as his father. Yakum Hashem Achiav. It should have said make sure they name him based on the brother of the father. The fact that it says Yakum Hashem Achiv, so therefore the Torah, who's it talking to? It must be it's not talking about calling a name, because if you're calling a name, you have to instruct someone to call a name. You have to instruct the Yavam, instruct Beis Din. Must be the Torah is not talking to anybody, not talking to anybody. So therefore, obviously, the Torah is not going to call someone a name. All the Torah is telling you a din that the nakal, that the inheritance goes to the yavam. So the Gemara says maybe that's not sure. Maybe the Torah is talking to Beis, and Amrulei Yavam Yakum Al Shem Achiv. Beis is instructed to tell the Yavam that you should name him after his brother Ella. So that's why the Gemara suggests Ella Asik Dereshava Fikte Lagarme. Therefore, the Dereshava of Nachal and Nachla we learn that it's talking about inheritance. Hashdam Ras Krab Gadol Ksiv Ema Bechor Liyabim Pashal Liyabim. Once we know that the pasuk is talking about Bechor is talking about the oldest brother, so maybe we should say only the Bechor or only the Gadol should do Yibam. But a Pashut, or only a Bechor is a true Bechor, meaning the firstborn from his father, right? Well, brother is paternal brother. So the oldest brother, it was the younger brother that died. Only a Bechor should do Yibam. A Pashut is not a Bechor. Any brother is not a Bechor. Imkain, where it says that can't be. Imkain, Eshes Achu Shaliyah Ba'olamo Demiyat Rahman Al-Amali. Because Eshes Achu Shaliyah Ba'olamo is talking about a case where there's two brothers that died, right? So there's there's at least two brothers. And one brother was born after the first brother died. So I need a me to tell me that he can't do Yibam. The Torah says he can't do Yibam. Normally, it implies that if they were contemporary brothers around at the same time, he would do Yibam, even though he's not a Bechor, even though he's a Pashut. You see that Pashut is obligated to do Yibam. So maybe it's coming to exclude a Bechor from the mother, meaning that the mother, a Bechor from the mother, meaning you share a brother not paternally but maternally. He doesn't do. That's what it's coming to teach me. The Gemara says, you can't say that's the intention of the pasuk. Torah mentioned the word nachal, inheritance by yibum. Inheritance to do with the father, the paternal brother, and not with your maternal brother. Maybe the fact that it mentions a bechor there, that you do the mitzvah yibum. Kileka bechor, when there's no eldest son, right? A bechor is a bechor peter rechem, right? The mother's firstborn child. Right? There's no mitzvahs yibam. Meaning, even those other brothers, you shouldn't do yibam. It says one of the brothers died. It's talking about two brothers. Aren't we talking about it included in the case that the Bechor died? And the Torah says someone does yibam. So you see that someone does yibam, he's not the Bechor. Whereas the aim of the miskatan, maybe the pasuk is talking about only one case where a younger brother died and the Bechor is instructed to do Yibam. Whereas the fact that the Torah excluded non-contemporary brothers shows these are contemporary brothers, and obviously the contemporary brother is going to be someone younger, right? Because the non-contemporary brother obviously is younger than the older brother, so therefore it comes to include a contemporary brother who's older than the non-contemporary brother, but still younger than contemporary brothers. You see, even a Bechor is obligated mitzvah of Yibum. When there's no Bechor, no actual real Bechor, Peter Rechem, then like our Mishna says, if the younger brother goes and does Yibum ahead of the older brother, he is Kona, the wife. Maybe that's what the intention of the Torah is telling about Bechor. That only if there's a Bechor, that if the Katan goes ahead, like our Mishna says, the Gadol does it, mitzvah b'gadol yabim, kadam zacha. So the Bechor comes to annotate our Mishnah and say that it only is talking about the Gadol, that the Kadam is Zacha. If there's a Gadol, but there's really a Bechor, and the Katan, he goes ahead of the Bechor, it doesn't work. So the Gemara says, Amar Krak, Yeshua Achim Yachdav, Hukshu Yeshivas Achim Zel. It says the word Achim Yachdav, so therefore all the brothers are connected to each other. They all are potentially obligated or could be Mekayim Mitzvah Yibam. When there's a Bechor, then you should go for the oldest one, the Bechor. He should be the first one doing Yibam. There's no Bechor, then there's no order. Anyone who wants to step forth to do Yibam can do it. Yibam. Alama Tana, we can't be like that. But Tani Abba Kashisha told the following Bryce, Mitzvah B'Gadol Yabim. The mitzvah and the oldest one do Yibam. If you didn't want to, you go to the younger brother. The next oldest brother and the younger brother. And if he didn't want to, then you go back to the oldest brother and you force him to do Yibam or Chalitza. And where it says Ki Bechor? No. We learn from the pasuk says Bechor, just like a Bechor. Ma Bechor, Bechurasa Garmalo. The whole notion of being a Bechor, you have a double portion in your father's estate. it's because you're bechor. Af gadol gdulaso garmalo. So too, the gadol. There is significance to being gadol, meaning at this point the Gemara is saying basically the word bechor does not mean the Peterech, the firstborn child, meaning of the mother. It means the oldest remaining brother. It doesn't mean that he has to be a Bechor. Literally, that you have to do Tainus Bechorim. The Gadol. We're going to just dissect this a little more in the Inum and see on exactly what the Gemara is doing over here. Whereas if Ema Kim Yabin Bechor Lishkol Nachala. Say when the Bechor does Yibum, so then he'll take the inheritance of his brother. Kim Yabin Pashla Lishkol Nachala. Maybe he wouldn't get the inheritance of his brother. Amar Kra Yakum Al Shem Achav. It says Harekam. It says he'll replace his brother, and he replaced his brother. He took over his wife, so he takes over the state. He did that. Bechor the Kari Rachmana Lamai top of Chavdalim and Beis Lamai Helchasa. Why say the word Bechor? If Bechor really means Gadol, why say Bechor? Just say Gadol, the oldest brother left remaining. So the Gemara says Legriusa to tell you to exclude something. Ma Bechor in a nota baraik muksach, a high in a nota baraik muksach. We treat the Yavam like a Bechor in as much as what? When you have a Bechor and he inherits his father's estate, let's say there's 4 brothers, right? One is the Bechor, so he gets double portion. It's five divided 5 ways. He gets 2/5, and the other ones get 1/5. But that's only with Muksach, only what the father actually owned at that time, was in his bank account at that time, land that he physically had a deed to at that time. But any loans that are outgoing that your father, people owed money to your father, or maybe I was taking stocks or things like that, that it's not really yours yet, right? I don't know if owning shares of stocks would be considered yours right now or not. But anyway, definitely a loan. Someone owed your father money, then you wouldn't get that. You'd be Yorish that from your father, not Yorish that from your father. Meaning he's not Yorish the second portion. He doesn't get the special Bechor status for the second portion of the Roy. The father does get paid, but that you split 4 ways, not 2/5 and 3 1/5. So also the Yavam, also when he inherits his brother's Nachla, he inherits in the same way is that he's not Yotel Baraik or Muksach. So what does that mean over here exactly? This Machlok is in Rashi and the Bahag. Rashi says that it's talking about from the father of these brothers' estate. Meaning he does get a double portion, meaning he gets his portion and he gets his brother's portion because he took over the Yevamos estate. But he only gets, when he inherits from his father, he only gets the Yevamos estate in terms of the Muksach, but not in terms of the Roy. The Bahag says, no, we're talking about over here is that the Yavam, when he yarshins his brother, when he does Yibum, he doesn't get Baroik or Muksach. He doesn't get the Roy from his brother. He only gets the Muksach that his brother really owned right now, not that was owed or accredited to his brother. All right. Well, maybe we'll talk about that at a different time. The Mishna says, Hanitan ala shifcha min shachra. Someone was suspected of being with a shifcha knainis, meaning having a relationship with her. You're not allowed to have relationships. It's allowed in the Torah. You can't, for Yisrael, you can't have a relationship with a shifcha unless you're an Amid Ivri. And then she became free. She became a complete Jew. All of us go chavim. You were, there were rumors going around you with Susie or whatever. The was go chavim in his Gaira. And then she became a Jew, right? You can't, after she's a Megayer or becomes free, you can't marry her. From Kanatim was the other, but if you do get married, you can't remove him because halachically she wasn't Jewish. There's no Ashes Ish, there's no problem with being married to her. It's just that people will say the rumors were correct and that it'll bring a bad name to this person, but he wants to get married. That's up to him. He doesn't care. He doesn't have to care what people say about him. He's happy with his new wife. That's all that's important, right? Hanitan al Ishes Ish, but if you're 2 Jews and you're suspect on adultery, committing adultery with another man's wife, obviously there's an issue in the Torah. You can't get married to that woman that you committed adultery with. And Beis Din took him out. They removed him from the marriage. They forced him to get divorced. Meaning Beis Din forced, obviously, the original husband, who she was married to, they had forced her to get divorced because once she commits adultery, baratzon for Yisrael, so she's asur al-bala. She's asur al-bala and truma, the Gemara in Sota. She can't be married to the original husband, and to the adulterer. And so Beis Din takes her out, and even now the adulterer wants to marry her, and he does marry her. The Mishna says we force him to get rid of her because he can't be married to her. just like a grusha marries a Kohen, we're basing it as forces him to get rid of her. Where it says, Hagioris miahavya. The Mishnah seems to say that the Isha, the non-Jew woman, she's Megayer after she has relations with this man when she was non-Jewish. It's a good gerus. Raminu, how could it be a good gerus? If you want a Megayer, Basin knows that you're Megayer just to marry a certain woman who's Jewish. Or there was a Jewish man, a non-Jewish woman who was Megayer only to marry the man. Or you want to be Megayer because the Jews are rich. Right, they're 25% of the top 40 people on the Forbes. I don't know, the billionaires. I don't know, 25% of the billionaires are Jewish. True fact, crazy stat. I think so. Or you want to be among the servants of Shlomo HaMelech. In time of Shlomo HaMelech, they're important people. Einam Gerim. You have ulterior motives. You don't want to do it l'shem shemaim. If you're afraid of the time Sancheiriv, they're afraid because they're going to get the lions. The lions were gonna attack them, so they became Jewish, so they wouldn't get attacked by the lions. Or you have a fearful dream that forces you. They tell you in a dream you have to convert to Judaism. In the time of Purim, everyone. Kulam Misyadim, they all want to become Jewish. They're not doing Einam Gerim. If they're not good Gerim, I change this Gerim Bizman Hazeh till they're Megayer nowadays. Now, Bizman Hazeh, Sakadat, it means nowadays, only now, in this generation, in 2020, 2022. Ela Ema Kibizman Hazeh, it has to be like now, in a regular time, when the Jews are more oppressed, the Jews are not sitting in a prominent position. Whereas the Hayat Mar Allah, Amar Yisrael Bar Shmuel, Bar Marsim, Mishmei the Rebbe, Halach Divrei Omer, that's Rabbi Nechemiah, we follow Divrei Omer Kulam and Gerim, even if they do it for ulterior motive, they're still Gerim it. So then why can't they get married to the Jewish? If she's Megayeres, why can't she get married? The Vesko Chavim. Even though you don't care what people think about you, you should. It's a mitzvah Rabbanan from Mishlei that you shouldn't have other people speaking negatively about you. People bending their lips and saying terrible things about you. We're not in Makabal Gerim in Yevamos Mashiach, which we are in now. Are we? Kayotzebo, lo yikiblu Gerim, lo meidav, lo mishlomo. Damn David Shlomo, when the Jews were the most prominent nation, they were Makabal Gerim. They did it for Latoya Moses. Amar Lezer, whether it works with the Evid or not, that's Machlokes or Nechem and Rabbanan. Amar Lezer, Micro, what's the pasuk? Hein Yagor, again, Ger Yagor, Efes Maosi. When you want to Megayer, it has to be not with me, not when Hashem is in prominence. If you're Megayer then you'll inherit when you die, Olam Haba, like the Jews, of all Idach Lo. But otherwise, you're not supposed to get a Gerus. If you're suspected with being with adultery, suspected of adultery, Amarav, Ve'edim. We only say he can't marry the adulterer. She can't marry the adulterer. Can't marry the adulterer. Be'edim. Only if there's Edim. There's two Edim that saw that they committed adultery. Must be when Rav was falling asleep. He said this. He said this teaching. The Bryce says if he's suspect of adultery, and they basically forced him to the original husband to divorce her. Can't be married to him. And then she was Megarish, and then she married somebody else, and she was Megarish. If the adulterer goes and marries her, we don't force him to get rid of her. Then what's the case of this Bryce? There's an Edim that saw them commit adultery. The whole point of marrying somebody else is that the coal is died down. People are not saying anything negative. If she marries somebody else, we don't suspect them of the adultery really happening. My have you? What does it matter? There's the Edim. She can never marry him. Must be there's no Edim. The whole reason is because she married somebody else in between. If she didn't marry someone in between, Mafkina, that Mishna says, get rid of her. If the adulterer can't marry her, if he marries the adulteress, then we have to force him to get out of the marriage. No, that price is even if there was no, she didn't marry someone else in between, and there was no hafsakas hakol. Either ika edim mafkina, and like edim lo mafkina. There's edim, we take him out. There's no edim, we don't take him out. The chiddush is that even though she married someone else, the chiddush is no, that even though there was a hafsakas hakol, she married somebody else, still she shouldn't marry the suspected adulterer. What is the Mishnah talking about when she has no children? If she has children from with the adulterer, lo say she can remain married to him for the sake of the children. Otherwise, people suspect the children become zerim. In bo ede tuma, but if real Adam came and said that there was adultery, I feel yesh lakam banim say we don't care whether the mamzerim. And the truth is that she committed adultery, can be married to an adulteress. Rav moki la masisim yesh la banim. Rav says our Mishnah is talking about where there is banim yesh la Adam and there's Adam, and that's why you still force him to end the marriage. Why do you say our Mishnah is talking about with both the adulterer? They got married, the adulterers got married, and they had children. And there's Adam that said they did adultery. But time with the Adam Mafkinon, the whole reason is Adam. We get rid of them. If no Adam, they wouldn't get rid of them because we're concerned about the reputation of the children. Look, say the simple way of saying our Mishnah is it's no children. They didn't have any children. There's no Adam, and we still get them because he would agree to that. Rabbi says Rav was bothered by the language of our Mishnah. My year, the Tanya Hotziua sounds like Basin. Listen, Hotzia, that Basin forced the original husband to get divorced. Hotzia, Alakol Hotzia, Basin Be'edim Hudamafki. Basin only gets rid of people if they have Adam. They don't act unless there's actual Adam over there. So therefore, it's implied by the Mishnah. We're talking about where there really were Adam over here, and that's why Rav said that our Mishnah is talking about Adam, and there was Banim, and that's why they have to get divorced. Hope you enjoyed today's shiur. See you when Yom Tov coming up now.